mindset of the society. So I think the most barrier we need to remove, that is the awareness about the better quality of life. It's not treat the disease, but it is support for the patients with love. So that's why I choose the question that is a success story. Our success story in our country, that is approach with the spinal muscular atrophy treatment. Uh, in our scenario, we don't have any drug has market authorization in our country. So the patients who has diagnosis with SMA, they only have one option, that is live until their last day. But based on the love, one parents, they can find the treatment in China, they can find their therapy, they can accept for and they access for Vietnamese patients. So our patients move to China, but in the first phase, that is not a sustainable solution because the patients need to go in there and there's no support from Vietnamese and from Vietnam. And so that's why the patients, they feel still isolated. But it starts from the patients and improved by the SCP because after the patients go to the China, bring the drug, so that there are some improve in the symptom. So the SCP, they at least they consider about that therapy. And the next, that is the assess, they improve by the ICB and they can approach the sustainability by the community. Why I said by the community? Because we can connect the hospital in the China with the hospital in the Vietnam, and after that the SCB in Vietnam can receive the experience, can understanding more about the multidisciplinary treatment by the SCB in China. So that's why we can move from care for the patients by only using the drug, move to care for the patients by multidiscipline, such as psychologists, such as we have the support of the physiotherapies. We also have the support from the neurologists and some in other departments. So until now, we understand that we at this time we don't have a market authorization for any type of drug for SMA, but we have the sustainable solution. So the patients right now, they can help with that, and we believe with what we have done for the gain SCP experience to build a referral pathway to have the patient understanding about the role of the physiotherapy at home. So we believe in the next few years, the pharmaceutical company maybe they will skip the thinking about the pricing and they will support our patients because we do everything we can, and now we only waiting for the pharmaceutical company to understanding for us, and that's all.
Thank you. So we have a different perspective, they actually look at collaboration with China as a temporary solution, and they're working on a sustainable solution within the country. And so we've heard the perspective from how it is from the parent side. We've heard the perspective from the professional side. And maybe our next group will tell us maybe some new solutions. We do have two speakers for the next part. First, I'll start with Attorney Jose Ochave, who is actually an advocate of the Philippine Society for Orphan Disorders in the Philippines, to probably give us, listening to them, now you can tell us, maybe you can give us an answer to that one, in addition to your assigned question.
I forgot the assigned questions. So anyway, I'm Joey Ochave. I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer and a chemical engineer. I've been in the business for about 25 years. I'm not a patient guy, I'm sorry. And I think after seeing the inefficiencies and inequities in the Philippine healthcare system for 25 years, I think I deserve to be impatient. I have reason to be impatient. One has to understand first, and this is, I always emphasize this, that the Philippine situation is quite unique, in the sense that the healthcare system is out of pocket. You don't have a big third-party payer unlike in most countries. So you have all the inefficiencies, all the inequities, and I would say all the corruption associated with an out-of-pocket market. Now, I'm a sucker for difficult causes, for difficult advocacies. Way back in 2020, 2000s, the early 2000s, people would say here in the Philippines, medicines are naturally expensive, so don't get sick. So I said, no, medicines need not be expensive. Because for the last 22 years, I've been the one going around all over the world looking at manufacturing facilities, and I know how much it costs, to manufacture medicines. And some of these guys here at the back, for the in 2000 to 2009, I led the charge against frivolous patents, and some of the, well, all three here were at the receiving end, which enabled us to bring prices down here in the Philippines. But they're very good friends as well, by the way. And I think in looking at rare diseases in particular, you need to, it's a different ball altogether. Number one, it has to be doctor-led. It has to be doctor and patient-led. It cannot be industry-led. Okay? And we're here willing to help, in terms of the marketing, the distribution, and in terms of the solutions, there is no one silver bullet, You can go clinical trials at this time, you can go compassionate special permit, which would require a little bit of tweaking when it comes to the regulations, which can easily be done by the Department of Health. As a lawyer, I'm not a big guy on frameworks and policy statements. When I look at the law, yeah, okay, that's good to know, but I look at the process. Because in the end, it's how do I deliver? My focus is how do I deliver the medicine to the people. So it's grounded. I don't care much for framework or for policies. Yes, that's good, WHO can do that, and DOH can do that, but in the end, how do you deliver the medicines? You have to come up with doable solutions. And that's where the focus is for us. So that's why I get a little impatient when people just talk about policies and framework without, okay, how do we do it? Okay? So here in the Philippines, there are many ways of doing it. One is clinical trials, but we need to partner with them, with the originators. By the way, RightMed is on a platform of advocacy. Early on when RightMed is under me. So RightMed is on a platform of advocacy, making sure medicines are affordable, it's access. And one of the things that I did with RightMed is form a group called NRAM, led by a medical doctor. NRAM is not readily available medicines. In the Philippines, there are many common diseases where you don't have the medicine because the market is out of pocket. So there is no big third-party payer. So the market is small. And therefore, the companies who will have this would not want to enter the market here. So I said, let's partner with them, let's partner with the doctors, so that we can provide access to the people here in the Philippines. So this is a time when, I always say, a fellowship of the ring is needed. A fellowship of the ring where people trust each other, and we go on a specific objective, and that is allow access to the patient. What else? Sources. The medicines, there are many types of medicines, so sourcing, the strategy will vary depending on the product, depending on the willingness of the originator to partner, depending on the funding. But political will, I think, political will is not something you wait for the politicians to have. It's political will is talking to them, which Dr. mentioned, we've been together in the newborn screening campaign, which Dr. mentioned is very good at. So it's always seeing it from their standpoint as well and helping them craft the arguments to support it. It's not a winner-take-all thing. They're good. There are many good people in government and many good policymakers who are there. And you just have to talk to them and tell them it's possible. And you will not be at risk if you do this. Thank you. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Doctor. He's my doctor, Attorney Joey now, okay? But Attorney Joey actually is a founding member and board of director of the Philippine Society for Orphan Disorders. So we had a lawyer from the very beginning, and he actually helped me polish the two laws that I've worked on, the Newborn Screening Act of 2004 and the Rare Disease Act of 2016. So he's an advocate, and we're happy to do that. He actually mentioned a couple of things that I want to say now. When you're talking to government, it has to be a partnership of the doctor and the patient. It has to be doctor-patient led. And he said, from the framework, from where he's coming from, because it's a president of a big company here for pharmaceutical company, RightMed, part of Unilab. He said that, medicine does not have to be expensive, but we have to find that on how we can make it happen on the ground. Not just policies, not just frameworks, but how do we make it happen? And I've seen how he did it in the Philippines. So for our last speaker, we'll have from Sanofi. Of course, we've got long relationships with Sanofi and Nissan. Please share with us your thoughts about this. Go ahead, please.
First, I want really to thank you for the invitation, and I'm really touched to be with you during these 2 days. I learned a lot, and I really want to thank all of you for that. So I'm head of global public affairs for Sanofi. I'm working for Sanofi for now more than 17 years in rare diseases. I was part of the previous oldest Genzyme legacy. And I'm also chairing the International Coalition of Company Rare Disease Group. We have created this group 3 years ago, and I will also discuss and talk a little about this group, because I think it's a really important group as well. First, what I want to share is access is a really multi-parameter, super problematic question. It's really difficult to explain access in 4 minutes, but what we can and what we have learned from our experience. So we had our first treatment for Gaucher disease before we had any regulation across the world related to rare disease. We were really pioneer at that time, and it's a really nice success story of the Genzyme legacy, how we were able to create a business model without any regulation. What is true is that when we look before any regulation, 2 to 10 drugs on the market in the big regions. Now with the regulation in the US, in Japan, in Europe, and all over the world, we are able to have on the market 300 to 600 rare disease drugs everywhere. I think it's just to show that when there is a willingness from policymakers to secure that there is a safe place to develop this type of drug, just for you to know, the risk taken to develop a rare disease drug is 1,000 more important than a common treatment. So the risk taken by a company is 1,000 more. And we need to decline the risk if we want company to engage in this field. So with this regulation, we were able to obtain to manage the risk, and that shows that company, when you manage the risk, takes the risk. And I think this is important to say that, because today we are discussing in Europe, in the US, to decrease the incentive regime related to the development of rare disease drug. And to me, to be honest, it's a major risk. Our company are going to continue to invest? It's a question. So just re-regulation got a positive impact, and I think this is something that we need to secure. Second, the main problem we've got is HTA. I think we have discussed that, and I hear that this morning, but also yesterday. HTA is not adapted to rare disease drug evaluation. That's true. So we've got now some group at international discussing how we can move forward beyond this HTA regulation, how we can adapt HTA processes with better recognition of value, better recognition of innovation, and adaptation of those parameters. I think this is something that we need to continue to work on for the future, especially for ultra-rare disease drugs. You know that now we are starting to develop and to try to develop ultra-rare disease drugs. And again, this is more and more difficult. We are talking about super small populations. The clinical trials and the robustness of our data is less important, and we need to make that understandable for policymakers. So in some region of the world, we have put in place some early dialogue between policymakers, patient organizations, physicians, and industry, just to explain why we are going to take this clinical parameter in the monitoring of the clinical trial and not this one. Because some of them can really show something and some of them will not show anything. And in the mind of policymakers, this is something which is really complicated to understand. They do not know rare disease, they do not know each rare disease, they do not know in a rare disease what are the different subgroups of patients. So it's really important for us to start at early stages dialogue to explain the disease with policymakers, and then we are able to be more successful in putting the drug on the market. Then the discussion is not ended. Then we are starting the discussion on price and reimbursement. And this is another painful barrier. And this discussion is really hard because, again, we are discussing about value of a drug and how we recognize that we are making progress on the disease impact. And this is really something, again, difficult to understand for policymakers. So the situation is quite complex. Just one word on what we try to do at international level. With IFPMA group, we have observed that there is a lot of donation programs. For example, at Sanofi, we've got 3,000 patients under donation programs for more than 20 years. I think this is something really important, and we try to safeguard these donation programs. But at the same time, there is some patient for more than 20 years in a country within a donation program, and we need to move from this donation program to something more sustainable. And the reason why is that between providing donation program for 5 patients in a country, we will prefer to provide the drug for many more patients in the country. And with donation program, we are a little blocked.
Allow me first to thank Sanofi, formerly Genzyme, for all your donations to our patients, because the Philippines has been a beneficiary of this support, and that's right, it's been 20 years that we've been talking to each other. Just a few points from her talk before I go to the second round. She made us understand the reason for this pricing, and the need for a balance between regulation and keeping the business so that they can continue their innovative projects and making it more accessible. Because at the end of the day, the companies will have to manage the risk. And I had been around for so long, I've had a chance of talking to some of your founders, actually, those who did the initial projects. And they told me how difficult it was at the very beginning when NIH stopped the funding and so on. So maybe as we make this conversation now, that's right. We need the patients, the policymakers, advocacy groups, and industry to come to the table and see where do we come up with a balancing act. At the end of the day, I totally agree. The donation program there has to be an end to it, and that's where government has to get into the picture. Before I go to the second round, can I just ask if there's any reaction to what has been stated earlier on? Attorney Joey.
Can I just build on what my colleague from Sanofi said? When I said medicines did not expensive, I'm referring to the small molecules. But the MABs and the medicines for rare diseases, those are really expensive. So what do we do? So what do we do is reduce the intermediation costs, so that it makes it a little bit more affordable. And this is my proposal: Sanofi, Pfizer, and Astra. The problem with multinationals, well, it's the way they're organized. They have subsidiaries, but the subsidiaries are pretty much their concerns are very different from those in the headquarters. So we've been approaching several of the subsidiaries and asking if you have medicines which you cannot bring into the Philippines because the market is small, because it's an out-of-payer market. We can partner with you. Maybe they can put a little push to the subsidiaries in. What we're saying is that we're not going to earn from this. This is not a business for us. But what we need is we partner together so that we can bring the medicine here. Charge whatever you have. And then together we can go to government, together with the patient groups and the doctors, and say, hey, there's a solution here. This is not a business. This is just providing access. So I think that's doable. But we need to have basically, together with the patients and how many are needed, with the help of the headquarters of the 3 companies here, perhaps they can nudge a little bit the subsidiary and say, okay, we'll pass through them, or we can even do everything here, the regulations, the customs, etc. And then together with them, we go to the doctor. So it's them actually facing the doctor. So there are solutions that can be done. If we cannot reduce the cost, and it's really expensive, particularly for rare diseases, then we reduce the intermediation costs. and we're willing to help try and see how we can reduce it. And show to the government, hey guys, this is not a business, this is just really patient access.
So let me tell you that we've been talking to Attorney Joey here to help us with all the rare disease products in the Philippines on how his company, his foundation is actually the executive director of United Laboratories Foundation, can rally and bringing in the products. So maybe that's something that we can actually do in the other countries. And you will help us reach out to the other countries. You made the promise that you will help all the other countries in the region having this kind of.
We can talk to Dexa Medica, we can talk to Daria Varias, we can talk to the various companies, national companies that are different in Southeast Asia. We're the largest in Southeast Asia. So we know the people here. So if they're willing to commit to the same arrangement where it's just access, they don't need, so that we can pull together, the requirements in ASEAN, and then so it makes it worth the while of the originators. I mean, this can be done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to eat about 10 minutes of your morning break because the next round actually is going to be very interesting because we've asked each one of them for round 2. They have a specific question depending on their role. And I'll start off probably with the patients again. Emily? It's down to 4 minutes instead of 5. Okay, so I'll say the question, then you can just answer it. Okay, it's how is the community progressing access agenda in your country, and the question is how can professionals in industry help? Answer just that second question. Okay.
Yeah. So what we have done so far is we have in our support group, in our community, we have created a support group to give support to GPP patients. Like we're coaching we have trained our GPP patients to support another GPP patient so they can join in the journey of their hardships and because they give emotional support to them as well. And then another one is we provide education and seminars to our patient and doctors because most of the doctors cannot diagnose immediately of the GPP. And we also develop network of GPP experts who has experience treating GPP, and also the partnership with several hospitals, so we can refer the GPP patients with FLAIR for confinement and for consultations. And of course, the advocacy for improved access to biologics and psoriasis care act that is currently need to file for Congress and the Senate. So our plea to the healthcare professionals is recognize the support groups in your country, because support groups can also not just have the network, but they also give hope and empower the patients to so they can be better the lives of the patients. And then our plea to the industry is as of now we don't have a field package, so
Yes,
field package because we're always also submitting with the HTA and still no approval of that all the time. So we also plead to the industry to help us in the faster round for the HTA approval in the field health package.
Let's clarify that. For that part, I'm going to tell you that your group will have a bigger role in providing the information to field health. So we'll talk about that later on. But thank you very much for saying that we as a group should continue recognizing the support groups because they play a major role in the care of the patients. And so thank you for highlighting that. We'll go to Dr. Pluto. Oh no, Nadia sorry. Nadia first, yes. Let's do the patients first.
Okay. I speak from a position that I'm fully aware that despite the fact that we're in Asia Pac, we all have very different experiences. So I'm not saying that what is working in Malaysia will work elsewhere. But I think in terms of what I've seen, how PAGs have been able to advance the whole entire space of rare disease, not only in terms of access, but screening, etc., is we're not just now asking for a seat at the table, but we're creating a whole new table in which everybody has a seat.
So when we're talking about co-creation, I urge everyone here to not just look at the doctors are pushing forward, the geneticists, the genetic counselors, the policymakers, but we're just sort of like the voice of saying, yes, we agree, let's sign the petition. You can create that, and as for what the General was saying, you know, when we say creating a seat at the table, also means a table where everybody can sit, right? For me, what has worked is, number one, we need to map. The reality of it is when you get the diagnosis or when you're usually looking at PAGs, they tend to be caregivers. Caregivers are looking at the survivability of your child, and you'll do whatever it takes to keep your child alive. Now, if you are a PAG of individuals living with rare disease, you want a life well lived. You want jobs with dignity. You want opportunities to participate in society, which is a different angle than if you were a caregiver-led PAG. So we have to understand the dynamics are very different. While I see a lot of newborn screening push, antenatal, whether we want to do abortion, at the other end we're talking about aging with rare disease, my honest hope is that across the region we have better looked at the transition between children to adolescents and from adolescents to adulthood. Because we have a lot of children who would have otherwise died, now living longer because of everything that is being given to them and access to research, therapeutics, etc. But we haven't fully figured out how do we help them transition as they live with the disease longer, not necessarily always better. So one, map. Number two, once we map all our stakeholders, we have to align and prioritize. Prioritize is a very painful word for me. Being a national organization, how do I prioritize which disease goes first? Because for the mom, for the child, for the person, my life matters just as much as the next person. You can't tell me that just because my unmet need is less than somebody else, you go first and I wait. The reality of it is, especially for national PAGs, you have to figure out how do you prioritize, what to prioritize, when to prioritize, for whom, and how. Then when you move into prioritization, you need to think about how do I engage and leverage the existing systems. We're not talking about creating new cycles, because very often when you have new leaders, new things come up. If it's working, build on it.